Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, friends, and the foes out there, and welcome to another episode of the Blood Brothers podcast with your host, Dilly Hussain. Before I introduce today's guest, I'm going to remind all the avid podcast listeners that you can find this episode on all 3 seasons on all the major audio platforms. And if you're tuning in via YouTube, don't be cheeky. Do remember to click subscribe to the Five Pillars YouTube channel. Today's guest is an activist who has been at the heart of his community for the best part of 5 years. Many of you will be reminded of him from his firebrand interviews during the RSC protests of 2019. But more importantly, for today's discussion, he is the independent candidate for this general election in the constituency of Hall Green, and that's none other than Brother Shakeel Afsar. Shakeel, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Pleasure to meet you. Long last week, we made it finally, alhamdulillah.
2 years in the making.
Alhamdulillah.
And the timing is when you're running for election.
Yeah. Well, let's say good things come to those who wait. So, alhamdulillah.
Well, let's kick it off, Shakeel, bro. You know, you're no stranger to the community's issues. You're no stranger to domestic issues, foreign issues, whether it's the RSC, which brought you into the national spotlight without any training. You've been a long-lasting activist for Kashmir, occupied Kashmir, for Palestine. You've spoken for the Uyghurs. You've spoken about domestic issues. What has made the last 8 months different to any other time before?
I think it's just because of the barbaric behaviour by the establishment. The fact that the Western establishment wants British citizens to live their day-to-day life after watching young children being blown to smithereens, after watching mothers lose their children. As a father, when my child wanders off for 2 seconds, my whole world comes to standstill when you can't see where your child is. So the fact that we have to watch our mothers, our brothers, our uncles, our aunties, our grandmothers, our grandparents lose innocent families for no fault of their own, if we don't become more active in our mission of what we want to do, then who will? Why
should Labour be punished for that, not the Tories?
I think because Labour has taken us for granted. The Tories, we've always known that they are our enemies, and they don't shy about telling us that. With Labour, it was always vote Labour, vote the Rose. Our communities always indigenously would think that Labour Party is going to support us, they're going to work for us, they're going to advocate for us. But they've done nothing but use us. When the Iraq war happened, that wasn't enough for them. Now they're committing a genocide, and the Labour leader for the largest Kashmiri community outside of Kashmir is in the city of Birmingham.
Yeah.
The fact that when Keir Starmer was appointed, the first thing he did was a U-turn on the Kashmir issue to say that it's not an international issue, it's a bilateral issue between the two stakeholders, is absolutely absurd. So the reason why we're punishing Labour is because Labour's the one who was meant to be our friend. They were meant to be our voice. You know, they even though we knew what they are doing, on face value, they always said, we're your friends, we support you. So I firmly believe that Labour is responsible for all the lack of representation that we have. Labour is responsible for the fact that and taken for granted the Muslim vote, which they've done continuously. And I think this is just a massive nationwide movement to show Labour that Muslims will not be pushovers.
Now look, many would agree with you in that regard. There's no denying that Labour has always been the traditional party for the Muslim vote, for the immigrant vote, for the vote for the people of colour, especially working class.
Yeah.
How credible is that argument, which we've heard for so many years, is that if it's not Labour, then who else? If we can't get someone in through the ticket of Labour, then what chance do we ever have for any political representation or a seat at the table?
Well, my answer to that is, look, at some point Labour would have been a party with no power. They had to start somewhere. They had to build somewhere. The Conservative Party also had to start somewhere, had to build a movement. And we might not make immediate change now, but over 10 general elections, if we have enough motivated people to go in as independent candidates or go in part of parties that are supportive of our concerns, our problems, our issues, then it will happen. You know, people, I know it's maybe very far-fetched, but sometimes, big things take a long time to get to. And I'm a firm believer that this election is going to be a clear example how the shift of Muslim voters, and not even Muslim voters, people who stand by human rights, whether that's stand by parental rights and don't want their children exploited, and it's not just Muslims, or don't want to see innocent children being bombed, or even to the taxpayer who doesn't want to fund wars in Ukraine, who wants our beggars off our streets taken off, so you will find that there is a massive movement. Yes, it will take time, there's no denying that, but I'm a firm believer, and inshallah, in maybe 20 years' time, if we're still around, we can have the conversation about how the Muslims and the human rights loving people destroyed Labour because of their stance.
Now, look, I kicked off today's interview by giving a description of what many would at least remember you from. The 2019, protest, the parental protests against an inappropriate pro-LGBTQ education.
Yeah.
Your interviews on Good Morning Britain, Philip Schofield, Sky News, BBC. You were forced into the limelight and the spotlight without any pre-training, whether it's public speaking, public engagement, debating, whatever it is. It literally happened for you overnight.
Literally.
How much of the last 4 or 5 years has helped you to arrive at the decision that you could perhaps stand for political office?
Well, if you go far back into my posts, I learned very early on, when this whole school issue happened and we were fighting for age appropriateness, bearing in mind that we do not discriminate any community that lives here, whether they're LGBT, whether they're atheists, whether they're religious belief. The matter for us was our children are ours, and their religious belief should not be infringed on by claiming that you're trying to target discrimination against another community. Yes, we must target discrimination against all communities, but we must not infringe on any particular community. So for me, it was more about, when I got propelled into this, I realized very quick, damn, this is the problem. This is what they call the Baradari vote. This is what they call remaining politically correct. This is what they call, or stay silent and you get a seat. So very early on, if anyone can scroll through my social media, you can see that my videos were being posted up with quotes. We will fight for accurate representation. We will be the voiceless. We will remove the yes men. So I knew very early on, because it was a complete flick for me. 1 minute I'm not involved. The second minute I'm deeply involved. I'm on every mainstream news channel with no training, with no support. None of the people who now are claiming to be representatives were there. I was standing alone, with 12, 13, 14 sisters, most of them who are wearing the hijabs. And I knew then that our community has been vilified by our own people. And it would be wrong of me to say, no, by our own people who have no morals. They're just interested in pay packets. They're just interested in having the position of MP Saab Agen, Councillor Saab Agen. They don't care about the bottom end user. They don't care that a mother's standing on the side of the school saying that I don't know what to do, who prays 5 times a day, who wakes up in the night to read the Tahajjud, who's very devout Muslim, says, I don't know what to do because my child's being sexualized. And when she goes into the school and says this, the teacher says, oh, 1 second, let me pick up the phone. Hello, prevent.
Social services.
Safeguarding. Get her kids removed. So what they do is they use fear-mongering. And I knew at that time that, you know what, Shakeel, when the next general election comes, stand. And moreover, when that school issue happened, Raja Gadzif, who was a Labour MP for 26 years, although I hated his stance on Labour, I credit where credit's due. When push came to shove, he stuck his neck on the line. He was suspended from the Labour Party. And I actually ran his campaign as an independent. He stood as an independent and I ran his campaign. He only got about 5,000-6,000 votes, but that wasn't the point. It was a principled stance that we rather support a candidate who's independent than support the Labour Party. And this was in 2019. We were calling out Labour when it wasn't cool to do so. Mm-hmm. Now it's very cool to call out Labour.
Absolutely.
We were calling out Labour when people were saying, Muria Pagal, have you lost your mind? You can join Labour. And I said, Uncle, 100 million people dead in Iraq under Tony Blair, and you want me to join Labour? Oh, no, Jeremy Corbyn. Yes, Jeremy Corbyn is a good individual. He stands by human rights. But does the community really align themselves with all his core values? No. So I knew that from a long time ago that either I was going to stand or I was going to be a part of a movement to get some change.
Were you given offers of perhaps a career within Labour if you stayed stum?
Absolutely. People from my own community was coming to me and saying, within the first 2-3 days of starting the protest, Shakeel, what are you doing? You can talk, you can speak, you'll work up your way in the ranks of Labour. And I said, to achieve what? Because the wage is £80,000. I'd rather burn that sort of money. Yeah, I'd rather burn that sort of money. It's not about money. I have enough to eat in the morning, enough to eat in the evening. And these people would look at me like as if I'm mad. And I had to come back sometimes and think, hold on, am I the one who's crazy, or are these the ones who's crazy? But when I'd sit down and think about it, I'd come to the consensus. They're a bunch of yes men.
Were you ever tempted?
Never.
Real talk.
Wallahi, I tell you from the core of my heart, with watching sisters, I've got videos of sisters thanking me, saying, Shakeel, you are my voice. Sisters who can't even speak, the English is not even their first language. Alhamdulillah, maybe if I wasn't in the financial position I am because of the hard work of my parents, maybe it would have been a different. But Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala put me in a situation where I didn't need the money. Neither was I really interested in being famous, because a lot of people said, oh, Shakeel stood in 2009 to be famous. I got a cost order, I got an injunction, I was cross-examined for half an hour, I was followed, I had to hide my children's school, I had to, they use this line, Shakeel has no kids. At the time, I had 2 kids. So it was, for me, it was more about a principle stance. And as somebody who has always been on the front line for Kashmiris, as somebody who's seen how certain people use the Kashmir issue as a political football to raise their own profile, I have made my intention then, when after the Raja Gadzif election happened in 2019 or 2020, I decided that whenever the next general election happens, I will stand. And you will see since then, since 2019, I continue to work. And not just on the school issue, I expanded it to things that were close to my heart.
So let's look at those issues which are very dear to you and in fact very close to the hearts of Muslims in general. Of course, the occupation of Kashmir, the occupation of Palestine, the RSC issue of 2019 onward, the Hindutva issue in India. You were filmed in so many viral videos confronting Modi supporters outside Birmingham Town Hall, City Hall. There was the whole, a couple of summers ago, there's a whole Midlands, not riots, but there was that conflict between the supporters of Modi and Hindutva.
The agitation by them,
Of course, absolutely. And you've been at the forefront of all these issues, some of which, the content that came out is a very firebrand style. You don't mince your words. And that could be good for those who like a bit of chaska, like a bit of passion, like a bit of fire in their belly. But it can also cause an issue for brand, palatability. Shakeel's good as an activist. How could he be polished as a politician? Have you experienced any of this in the last couple of weeks since the election was announced? That Shakeel, you're good as an activist, but as a firebrand, it may not do well with politics. Have you experienced any of this?
Yeah, well, absolutely I have. And, a lot of people, with what they're saying is true, but what a lot of people don't understand, and I think was sensationalized by the mainstream media at the time as this angry man. Shakeel is very versatile. When I'm an activist, I have my activist hat on. When I'm sitting down having a conversation with people, high esteemed people like yourself, I can have that conversation. So I'm very versatile. And I believe that I'm not going to act. People are sick of this act of our politicians who act to be something and act to care and act to be human rights advocates, but in essence they're funding and facilitating and be a party to a genocide. I say it how it is. I believe it as it is. Yes, there are some things in my 6-7 years that I've been on, bearing in mind I was propelled in this at a very young age with no media training. There was a few things that I did that I would go back, and if I had a chance to go back, I would take back, of course. But going forward, I firmly believe that I have changed. My politics stance, style, and the way I conduct myself has changed, and it will only further change. But those people who are strong on that and stuck on that are only people who don't like my change because it affects them. The fact that the things I'm saying affects them, the people I'm calling out is them. So naturally they're going to use that against me. Yes, could I have done certain things better? Absolutely. We all make mistakes, and I'm never going to even say going forward that I'm not open to criticism, because I am. Every politician, when I'm asking for people's votes on the streets, I've changed it around. So I'm not saying give me a vote. I'm saying please lend me your vote, And if you lend me your vote, I'm giving you permission to critique me and hold me to account. When you see me on the street, I'm giving you permission to do so. I'm not going to say, oh, you're heckling me and call the police. I'm advocating your vote to be your voice. If elected, you have full right to question me. So I do believe I have a journey. Where that's going to go, only Allah knows. But as long as I keep my intention pure and renew my intention on a daily basis, I think I'll get wherever I need to be.
Brothers and sisters and friends, I see that you're enjoying the content. How come you've not clicked subscribe to the Five Pillars YouTube channel? And if you're watching via Rumble, how come you've not subscribed on our Rumble channel? If you like the content, you like the guests, you like what we're talking about, it's absolutely inexcusable and cheeky for you not to click subscribe. Thank you and Jazakallah khair. Before we start looking into the kind of intricacies of the constituency that you're running in, there are two individuals that you've been very closely associated to in recent weeks in terms of mutual endorsements, and that's Ahmed Yaqub, the mayoral candidate, independent mayoral candidate, came third, 70,000 votes, shocked many people.
Alhamdulillah.
Jody McIntyre,
a
disabled revert brother who has a rich activist past as well. It seems that you three are helping each other a lot. Do you think either of them stand a chance of winning in their constituency?
Absolutely. I think they stand a very good chance. I think any independent candidate who has clean intention, who has been there for the community, who has stuck their neck out, and I know with Jody, he's been to Palestine on major convoys. Ahmed Yaqub is, if you just walk into his firm with the amount of staff he's got, you'll think this guy doesn't need to do nothing else. Alhamdulillah. I think they will win, inshallah. And whatever happens, and regardless of the outcome, they have made the change. Like, alhamdulillah, it was Ahmed Yaqub. Even people like myself, we were having conversations of standing as independent candidates, but he's the one who lit that match and ignited that fire. He's the one, when he stood and he took 70,000 votes and people were saying, oh, this TikTok lawyer, he's not going to get nowhere. Look how he talks. Look, he's from Birmingham. And what did he do?
Well, fellow Muslims saying that.
Fellow Muslims.
Because I know the Birmingham Mail was saying.
Oh, no, fellow Muslims, So, but what did he do? When you do something with clean intention, you got to remember you have Allah on your side. There is no power. There is no amount of money. There is nothing that you can change that. And I firmly believe that, especially his seat that he's fighting with against Shabana Mahmood, the MP who abstained from a ceasefire, abstained from killing young children. He's going to take that seat. And along with Jody, with his sincerity, with the way he's working, with the disability he has, it's just, if Allah doesn't put barakat in that, I don't know where Allah's going to put barakat. I know for a fact that they are going to, if anything, teach them a good lesson. And alongside with any independent candidate, whether it's me, if your intention is clean, you will have the support. You will have people will be behind you. People will be rooting. You will have conspirators from within the community. Back in the slave trade, they used to have the house. They used to have another word for it, but I'll say the house slaves, who would be from the black community, but they'd be in the house and get slightly more privileges, as in the outside slaves would eat cold food, you'd eat warm food. So, and that's what happens here. And that's what people, unfortunately, find that they work against people like Ahmed Yaqub. They work against people like Jody McIntyre, who are in this for no reason other than the belief that they have that their people are being misrepresented, and that we can't just protest. Because protesting, look how many protests we had. And I'm for protesting, but what have we really achieved? Other than empowering ourselves, it hasn't stopped the genocide on the Palestinians. So we need to get into the corridors of power. And even if we can't stop it, at least we can look into the eyes of the people who are voting for aggression, who are voting for genocide, and tell them that we do not accept you, we will never accept you, and we will continuously work against you.
You said there's been conspirators that have been working against Ahmed and Jody. Has anyone been working against you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. From the minute we've announced, we made the intention. My dear brother Ahmed's actually been telling me to announce since November. I didn't because I thought it wasn't the right time. And then when he stood his mayoral campaign, I felt that it would be a wrong time for me to announce, because Ahmed's running his mayoral campaign. We all should be focused on the mayoral campaign. Soon after, I think it was 2, 3, 4 days maybe after the mayoral campaign, I made the intention to announce. And since that day, I've had nothing but conspirators. I've had nothing but random candidates propping out as independents who nobody's seen. And I'm walking around the area and they're asking me, without mentioning their names, oh, who's this guy? And I'll turn around and said, you tell me, because I don't know.
Were you expecting this?
I was expecting it. Because
no one expects a kind of perfect campaign without any hiccups or spurs in the works.
It's never going to happen. So I was expecting it. Plus, with what's happened over the last 5 years, I was definitely expecting that there's going to be people from within our community who have got allegiances to the wrong side. It always happens with everything, whether it's business, friendship, even if you go to another country, you're always going to expect that you got 10 friends, but there's going to be someone who doesn't like the look of you or how you talk. And that's what's happened. But I firmly believe that Labour is very clever. They've got very big funding. They've got very big history in politics, more than probably many of us put together. So it's very easy for them that if they have independent candidates like Ahmed, like Jody, like Shakeel, who are running successful campaigns, the easiest way to scupper those campaigns is to just announce another independent candidate, make them run a campaign, the vote is split, and who comes in? Labour floats straight in.
Jody is running for Workers' Party, right?
Yes.
What prevented you or Ahmed? Oh, well, Ahmed can answer for himself. What did you consider running for Workers' Party or any other new forming party or anything locally?
Well, I was, without naming them, I was working with a party, and what I noticed is the same sort of thing, the same sort of control, brotherlyism, my control. And there's a lot of parties like George Galloway's party, the Workers' Party, and hats off to George Galloway with what he's doing. The answer to that is no. If I was to ever stand, it would be independent. If my people feel that that's what they want, they'll vote me in. And if they don't, they won't. Because I could never have a whip over my head telling me what to say when my constituents are telling me something. And if I have to go back and say, sir, can I say this? It has no value for me.
I'm glad you mentioned the whip over your head. One of the biggest criticisms against you, Shakeel, and this is even coming from people who may be supportive or neutral or have supported you in the past, is that Shakeel appears to be a good community leader, but can he be led? Can you be led? Can you work under leadership?
Absolutely. If that leadership is concise and fair and is representative of my community, I have no problem with taking orders. I have no problem with working in a group of people, because remember, 2, 3, 4 minds are better than one mind. But the issues that I have, especially of somebody seeing and standing on the side of the school and facing thousands of pounds of cost orders, that nobody's coming and speaking, nobody's coming and standing. I can't be in a group or give my commitment where I know I can't speak what my heart and what my mind is telling me, or moreover, what my constituents are telling me. I'm happy to work with everybody. Like Jody's the part of the Workers' Party. We're working very closely with one another. He's endorsed me. I've endorsed him. We have no issues. We're actually campaigning with one another, assisting each other where we can. So I'm a team player. I always have been. I like to play in a team. Can I work in a party where they tell me what to do when I don't like to do it? No, that can't happen.
Does the Workers' Party have a candidate in this constituency where you're running?
From my understanding, don't hold me to it. From my understanding, no. There's no campaign being led because Ahmed Yaqub as well at the time did mention that we're putting up candidates in different areas. And quite rightly, because Ahmed Yaqub is endorsed as in working, he's not with the Workers' Party, but he's endorsed by him. Yeah. I think they've given that mutual respect to say, okay, fine, you've endorsed Shakeel and etc. or whoever else, and then we're going to work together on this.
Similar to what they did in Ilford North with Liam Mohammed.
Yeah, so we're working together.
So let's now bring it right home to the constituency of Hall Green.
Yeah.
Tahir Ali, we remember the ding-dongs you had with him.
My best mate.
Yeah, the videos are still up, the community Q&As. This was an individual who came after Roger he was suspended or kicked out of the party. He came in, he was pro-RSC, pro-LGBTQ, Tahir was.
Yeah.
You've had him for what, 4 years now? 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Does he yield any power beyond the Labour vote, meaning that he's going to have the Labour vote and those who are blind will vote blindly for Labour?
Yeah.
Do you think, and again, we will never know this conclusively, but do you think there's a situation of plants even in your constituency?
100%. 1,000,000%. Because Tahir Ali is somebody, and when the people from Sparkhill, Sparkbrook, Hall Green, Moseley, Kingsheath and Tyseley watch this, they will testify that Tahir's not been here. I did a news interview with Robert Carter a few days ago, and we were outside Tahir Ali's office. He was in shock. The office has that much weed growth on the front of it, like no one's entered. A member of parliament who's representing a 54% Muslim constituency, you'd imagine that his tie would be off, his sleeves would be rolled, and he would be not sleeping, constantly doing everything to reassure his community that he's fighting day and night for Palestine. And when the people of these my constituents watch this, they're going to laugh because they know that he's been nowhere. And, a few tweets here, a few tweets there. You can go into the House of Parliament and say, Rishi Sunak has blood on his hands. But to take that back, to say sorry, yes sir, 3 bags full, sir, people remember.
Because he got outed, didn't he? He had to retract and apologise.
He had to retract, and it's not the first time. He had to retract and apologise. And we're not asking him to say nothing that's, going to malign the other person or make, spread false rumours. Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer have blood on their hands. Even if he had to be thrown out of the chamber, and I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and they go, you know what, if you get elected, it's going to be exciting. I said, why? He goes, because every other day you'll be thrown out of the chamber. I said, I have no problem with that. I'm happy to be thrown out the chamber. I will proudly walk out the chamber and say, do what you like. This is not about me, myself, or I. This is not about a position. This is more about the people who we elected. They've done nothing but line their pockets, keep their seats warm, and say, yes sir, 3 bags full, sir, to the people who are their masters. And in that time on the school, we actually reached out to Tahir Ali and said, look, Muslim parents, stand by them, 54%. And he went to as far as saying those Muslim parents who are standing at the side of the road are equivalent to BNP. Yes. And BNP and what another word he used?
Bro, he brought into the whole kind of extremist narrative that these are all a bunch of extremists and religious zealots are not representative of the tolerant Muslims. We're actually all I remember all that bakwas he came out with.
Yeah. And if you take a walk around the area, we love every human being. The LGBT community have just as much right to live, thrive and do what they like here. It was never about them. It was always about our children of the Abrahamic faith, whether they are Jewish kids, whether they're Muslim kids, whether they're Christian kids, or even some atheist parents. It was about parental rights and age appropriateness. And we know with that battle that we had, what's come out and what the central government is saying now, that 9 years old is not anything below. Yes, been vindicated.
We were right.
We won. We took a battle, but we won. And we don't want no trophies for that. But the point being is, it shouldn't have been Shakeel Afsar, 31-year-old, standing on the side of the road. It should have been Tahir Ali, Labour candidate, saying, to hell with your seat. This is what my constituents want. And if he had stuck by his people hard enough, Labour would have no choice. They wouldn't be able to suspend him. If everyone was around him and they knew if they suspended him and he stood as an independent, he would have gone with flying colours. And Ahmed mentioned this, and I'll mention it to you.
Would you have backed him if he resigned and stood for independent?
If he resigns now as an independent, I'll step down the next day. Just to teach Labour a lesson. Although, look how much history me and Tahir have got. If he steps down now and says, I can't work with Thingy, I will step down and I will support him if he stands as an independent candidate in Hall Green. Not that I like his views. As a brother, we have to remember, he's my brother in Islam before anything else. But if he does that, I will happily do that. And also, Ahmed Yaqub has said the same thing. And he said this on Sheikh Asrar's podcast, YouTube, that if Shabana Mahmood steps down, we will step down, and not only will we help, we will fund and support their campaigns.
Why won't they leave? Why don't these Muslim MPs leave Labour?
Yes, man. These people are so engrossed with thinking that this is the only way that we can make change. Yes, as independent candidates, we might not be able to go and make any significant difference straight away. But in the one general election, second general election, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, at least our future generations are going to see a British establishment that is governed by their view as well. Governed by their view as well, and not just somebody where we have to just live here and say, look, oh no, this is not, we can't. Because a lot of people are moving out from the UK now. because, and even my family members, because of the fact of what's happening here, you can't say from the river to the sea without being called an extremist. Like
of course we all are.
You can't say that we love all communities, but I don't want my young child to learn about complex sexual relationships at this age. You're an extremist. Oh, you're an extremist. You don't want your child to learn about this. No, because the human rights protectors. So I think in that respect, it is a long road ahead. Everything that's good never comes easy, because if it came easy, everyone would have it. So I firmly believe that we need to move away from the mainstream parties, whether that's joining another party and propping them up. But I feel the best way is if every constituency up and down the UK had an independent candidate who is not governed by nobody but his constituency, we would have a much more accurate parliament that would be really democratic on the views of the people, rather than what Keir Starmer says or what Rishi Sunak says.
Sounds like the re-emergence of a future UKIP, UK Independent Party. Might be UKIM, UK Independent Movement. It could be.
Could be.
Now, look, let's look at Tahir Ali. He voted for a ceasefire.
Yeah.
Is that not good enough? Is that too little, too late?
Look, he voted for ceasefire. We appreciate that. We can never disallow the good work that people do. But at the moment, with what's happened to his leader of his party, who controls him and what he can say and how he can say it, is a warmonger. He is a genocide facilitator. He's the same person, Keir Starmer, who said that Palestinians should be starved of water, electricity and basic human rights because Israel has a right to defend itself. So for us, voting any Labour candidate, doesn't matter if they voted for anything, is a vote for Keir Starmer.
So it doesn't matter how pro-Palestine they are. So your Afsana Begum, your Zara Sultanas.
A vote for any Labour candidate is a vote for Keir Starmer. Yes, going forward, if that changes in the next few years, or if they change the party leader or the party restructures itself, at the moment, if you vote for any Labour candidate, you're just basically giving the green light that the genocide you're committing is acceptable, because we know those same Labour candidates, they might vote for a ceasefire, but their editorial policy is governed by the people that they look up to, the people that they aspire to, the people, because you can see when these big shadow cabinet members or mayors come, how all the MPs, they rally around them. They've never stood that smiley with their own parents, but are willing to do that with these people, unfortunately.
Now look, we are in Hall Green, and there's a situation here.
Yeah.
The elephant in the room is that there is another independent candidate.
Absolutely.
Let's not mention his name. People can do their research if they wish, but there is another independent candidate here who is claiming to run on the pro-Palestine Gaza ticket, right? Now, nationally, for the first time, perhaps in modern British history, since Muslims have been here, we are mobilizing, we are organizing. The Muslim Vote National Strategy has gained huge momentum, huge national attention. People are seeking their endorsements. But we're stuck in a bit of a quagmire in this constituency.
Yeah.
How are you managing this situation?
So first of all, it was quite strange, this candidate just propping up. And then it brings back to speculation of what people are saying about Labour's policy on how to split the vote. But albeit, let's say that he's just stood up for, give him credit where credit's due. It's very strange that a random person who's not been within the community, who hasn't handled any key core issues, who hasn't, been on the front line, taken cost orders, taken discrimination or done mainstream shows or done mainstream campaign, is suddenly standing. But that's his right. He has a right to do that. If he believes the constituents of Hall Green will support him, fine.
Will they support him, Shakeel?
I don't think this is a question. That question is for me to answer.
What's the vibe you're getting? What's
the vibe
feeling?
I'm getting, everyone's saying to me, Shakeel, we're with you, and who's this guy?
Okay.
Shakeel, we're with you, and who's this guy? And I'm replying, who's this guy? But bringing it back to TMV, I actually have given them my full cooperation. This is on record.
Okay.
TMV approached me because quite rightly they want to endorse a candidate in Hall Green, and they said, look, you both stood. We need to endorse a candidate, and we need to be fair. And I said, absolutely. Look, you be fair who you think. And they said, we want to follow a procedure of conducting a straw poll. Would you accept the conditions that we have? So the conditions were they're going to have 3 questions, 30-second video of both candidates. I'll allow one of my supervisors to go with their team. They would allow one of their supervisors with my team. the supervisors would have to hand in their phones to the office. They wouldn't be made aware where they're going, what address they're going. And the conditions were that if it fell in my favor, the other candidate would have to step down and I would be endorsed. And if it went in his favor, he would be endorsed and I would step down.
Did you comply?
I've categorically accepted everything that they've said. And I still haven't heard anything back from the other side. Now, I don't know what the internal workings and what's happening, but as far as I'm aware, we have a deadline on Friday.
It's Wednesday. Now, this podcast is going to be released next week. We're Wednesday, 5th of June now.
Yeah.
The deadline is 2 days away.
2 days away.
So by the time this podcast comes out, your name could be in the ticket, may not be in the ticket if the issue is resolved.
Before Friday.
Before Friday.
Yeah.
Do you think the issue will be resolved?
No. Because from my understanding, and I've reached out for a few people, because I've said to them, look, this is messing up my mission to dethrone Labour from Hall Green. I have no issue with standing down. I'll stand down. I'm the same guy who stood on the side of the road alone and had no issue and feel no ashamed or shame or say, why am I here? People are looking at me. I have no issue with standing down right now. If there's a clear consensus, if it's done impartially, I'm happy to stand down. If there was a very obvious better candidate than me, somebody who was more esteemed, somebody who had done a lot more work, I wouldn't even ask TMV to conduct a straw poll. I would stand down voluntarily. But from somebody who's not in the community, he's from the community, but he's not been seen to be doing stuff in the community, whether he's doing that in the background, Allah knows best. But from the public perception, the support's with me. Everyone's saying that we acknowledge what you're doing and what you've done and how you've done it. We appreciate you. And who's this guy? And I've just said, look, conduct your own research. It's not for me to say who he is or who he isn't. Conduct your research, who he is, what links he has, where he's come from. Because all my information is very clear. You know, like they say, my laundry is hanging out and everyone can see it. There's nothing hidden about Shakeel Afsar. Everything that we've done is all out there. You know, every mistake we've made is all out there.
By choice or not?
Yeah, by choice or not. It's all out there. But what I would say is it's very, very peculiar that when there's a massive momentum up and down the UK, that there's these random candidates who haven't had any sort of stakeholder in the community before, other than doing their own little bits wherever they were doing it, are suddenly saying that we represent the community. So, look, I'm going to fight a clean campaign. I'm going to, always keep the name of Allah on my tongue. And like I said, if before Friday, TMV come back to me and say we've conducted a fair, accurate straw poll and it's not in your favor, Shakeel, I immediately will go and meet the opposition. I will make a video and I will stand down. But
if it's unresolved,
then I have no choice but to carry on.
Hold up. The show will continue. But before it does, I want to remind you all that the Blood Brothers podcast is the fastest growing English language Muslim podcast in the world. When we deliver unique quality content to you week after week, brothers and sisters and friends, it requires money. So please click the link in the description and support this project however you can. Back to the show. On that note, right, we now have a situation here which you've said in your own words that it's unlikely to be resolved.
Yeah.
Have you had any engagement with this other independent candidate? And how much are you able to tell us? Because we've seen, for example, in Bethnal Green and Stepney, the issue between Ajmal Masroor and Tasneem Akanji, alhamdulillah, eventually got resolved.
Yeah.
Tasneem stood down and the support went behind Ajmal as the independent candidate to dethrone Rushanara Ali, another genocide enabler who abstained from voting.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen in other parts of the north where certain candidates are now stepping down for the wider sake of unity and the greater objective of punishing Labour over their complicity and enablement of the Gaza genocide. What communication, if any, have you had with?
No, I've had a major robust communication. So, and I've met with the other candidate as well, because it was going through a lot of other people and I felt that it should be better of a direct approach. And I said the same thing. I said, brother, I don't know you. If you were somebody who I knew and somebody who I've seen do the work in our community, maybe I wouldn't have this conversation. I would, give way. But with the fact that I don't know you, with the fact that I have, in the back of my mind, I believe you're a Labour plant, with all due respect.
You told him that, did you?
Not in that so many words, but in essence to say that I don't know where you've come from and let's just leave it to the community. I trust TMV. They're an organisation I've endorsed many people. and I'm willing to put my trust in them. If they say that, look, the straw poll has come back, and you know, straw poll, it's done as a survey, and it's always done by external people, so it's impartial. So I approached the meeting with the view that, look, I wasn't telling him to stand down, so that's not my place to say. And what I got was kind of the fact that we don't acknowledge TMV kuna, the fact that, you know, I'm this, I'm that, I've done this, my career's this, I have these few letters against my name, I speak a bit more eloquently than you. And I didn't want to get into an argument, because at the end of the day, it's a Muslim brother. So I said, look, the best thing to do.
He's a barrister by profession, right?
He's a barrister by profession. So what I said was, look, the fair way is, we've got a couple of days, let's have a straw poll. Whoever comes out on top, fair play. And I even went to extend to say that if it lands in your favor, I would put my whole social media team behind you. And I give you my word. And this is not something that I'd just disappear and go on holiday. I will actively be behind you. But if it's the latter, then I hope, if it's vice versa, then I hope you're going to do the same for me. That conversation wasn't being entertained. There was, you know, disallowing of TMV, you know, kind of saying that we're here now. You can stand for council next year, Shaq. You can. You got a long career ahead of you, Shakeel. You know, you can do this at the next general election. You can be my chief of staff or handle my social media. For me, that's not sufficient. Because before this meeting, I've had endorsements from the likes of Sheikh Afsar, from my brother Ahmed Yaqub, and moreover from my constituency and my mom. My mom has said to me, Shakeel, don't back down. Back down only if it's fair and the community want you to. Back down, son. Otherwise, don't back down. What you're doing is right. Everyone's behind you, and it's your intention. Always renew your intention. And if you feel at any point your intention has become, you know, darkened or is not right, get out the whole process, because it defeats the objective. You know, we're not in it for fame. We're already well known. With the amount of stuff that we've done, we're well known. We're not in it for money. Alhamdulillah, Allah's blessed us. For me, it's more about passion. I'm not trying to build, the other respected brother who's standing in the constituency is maybe trying to build his political profile. I'm not here just on the Palestine ticket. You know, a lot of people are jumping on the Palestine. I'm not here just on the Palestine ticket. And I have no problem with saying that. Yes, Palestine is a core issue to me, but so is the RSC, so is Kashmir, so is the antisocial behavior, so is the food deprivation, so is the housing crisis that we have. We have mothers with five children living in hostels where there are other people with, vulnerabilities, either drug issues, mental health issues. So for me, I've been part of this community. So Palestine is a major factor that motivated a lot of people to stand, but that's not the ticket that I'm running on. I'm running on a ticket because I've been here for the community, whether it was the nitrous oxide issue, whether every year on Chand Raat that we are out with the police, not doing nothing for it, doesn't help our street cred in any way. You know what I mean? But we are there because the community needs us. There are people coming up, causing antisocial behavior. So I would put a message out to this brother that if you really care about the community and if you really care about de-seating Labour, there has to be one candidate. And you can't be making speeches saying, I don't mind losing, because I mind losing. Because if I'm in it to win it,
are you in it to win it?
I'm in it to win it. I'm not here to, this is why I actually put my hand forward to them that, look, if I have to stand down, when I mean in it to win it, as in to de-seat Labour, who does that? I don't care. Like the oldest say, we want the mangoes off the tree. How we get them down, it doesn't bother me. So, but it has to be done in a fair way, in an impartial way, that my community don't feel that I've let them down to a random person who potentially, I'm not saying is, but potentially could have some links with Labour Party, because it's reinforced more. Allegedly, but it's reinforced more that this individual's brother only resigned from the Hall Green Labour CLP 9 days ago.
That's crazy.
So
is that public knowledge?
Public knowledge. It's on Twitter.
Bringing the podcast to a close, Shakeel, I'm glad you touched upon, the other issues besides the Gaza ticket, right? And, you touched upon the housing crisis, the food shortage, antisocial behaviour, substance abuse. You've mentioned a fair amount of things which would be of national concern to people, especially from working class backgrounds. But you're Shakeel Afsar. You're not just a standard normal guy who's, you know, I want to run on a whim, build my profile on a political platform.
Yeah.
You have 5 years of an archive of content online.
Yeah.
So let's put aside your constituents who are Muslim and pro-Palestine. In your constituency, you have Indians.
Yes.
You have Hindus.
Yep.
You have homosexual gays and lesbians and trans.
Absolutely.
These are people who may disagree with you, may dislike you. There may be people who don't care much for Gaza, quite frankly.
Quite right.
Why should they vote for you?
Because I've clearly demonstrated when there's an issue, I will speak to the highest level as possible. When there's an issue, I will stick my neck out. And with those communities that you mentioned, they're part of my constituency, and I will represent them in the same fashion. You know, this sensationalism that Shakeel is this and he's this was only done by the mainstream media. Every time I meet a Hindu family, they love me. They invite me into their home. Every time I meet the LGBT community and I talk to them, they say to me, "Oh, Shakeel, you don't seem like an homophobe," because I'm not. I'm not an Islamic scholar. I've never questioned the rights or wrongs of what other people do. My issue is always with Muslim households, Jewish households, Christian households, parental households have a right to protect their children and raise them how they want.
Are people voting for the Birmingham bad boy with a firebrand mouth? Is that what they're voting for on July the 4th? Or is there, are you offering more?
No, what they're voting for is somebody who's going to be an unreserved champion of their views, who's going to go into the corridor of power and say what needs to be said without, sugarcoating it or without, having to say sorry after a couple of hours. I'm not saying that I'm not going to advocate issues to the highest level. If that means me protesting, I will protest. If that means me holding surgeries, I will hold surgeries. If that means me rallying other MPs, I will rally other MPs. Shakeel is a very versatile individual. And a lot of people have only seen the activist Shakeel because that's what I was made out to be at the time. I was vilified by the press. I was called an Islamist. I was called a terrorist. I was called every name under the sun you can imagine, homophobe, Zen.
We told you back in 2019, welcome to the club.
Welcome to the club. And look, personally, I feel that even the people who think that they couldn't vote for me, they will be pleasantly surprised that I am a person, if I am appointed and I get your vote, I will be advocating for you unreservedly. I am a Muslim by religion. My core religion is close to my heart, but their core values are up to them, and it would be up for me to represent them without infringing on any religious protected characteristics. So I would defend their causes, their issues, their problems without infringing on anybody else's, and more importantly, my own values. Because at the end of the day, I am a Muslim and our values are generic. Everyone can abide by them. Peace, love, love for your brother, what you love for yourself. And, I will be an unreserved champion for the Hall Green constituency, inshallah.
My last question to you is, come July the 4th, come this situation isn't resolved, people can, when they go in to vote, they're going to see 2 independent candidates. If this issue is unresolved,
yeah,
right? What would your final words be to your constituents in Hall Green on July the 4th if they see 2 independent candidates on the ballot paper?
Right. The generic answer would be, vote for me. But no, that's not my answer. My answer is going to be, vote for that candidate who you believe has been there for you, has spoke there for you, has put his neck on the line for you, and will continue to do so. If you feel, and the constituents feel, I am not the candidate that they should choose, I respect that decision. But what I would say is research into Shakeel, research into the other candidate as well, and based on merit, give us that vote. Based on merit, allow us to go in the corridors of power. And if you feel we are worthy to voice your concerns, then give us the vote. Otherwise, don't give me the vote. Because if you feel I'm not worthy of it, then I'm not. But do check how long Shakeel has been here, how many cost orders he's taken, how many times he's been falsely arrested with NFA. I have a Christian clean record, by the way. How many times, and I have no issue with continuing to do this. I will lobby the cause of my people to the highest level, inshallah. But do vote. And if you're not, another message I would have, if you're not registered to vote, make sure you register to vote. And whoever you give your vote to, make sure it's the candidate based on merit and not based on historic allegiances, or not based on mara chacha na puttar or bradri or my uncle's son. Base it on the person who's been there for you.
Shakeel, it was an absolute honour having
It's
you
an
on.
absolute pleasure.
I'm glad we made it happen after 2 years.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah for hosting us.
No. My house is your house.
Jazakallah khair, Shakeel.
Alhamdulillah.
My dear brothers, sisters and friends, I hope you all thoroughly enjoyed this podcast as much as I did. If you enjoyed this episode, do remember to click subscribe to the Five Pillars YouTube channel. And if you're an avid podcast listener, I remind you all that you can find this episode and all 3 seasons on all the major audio platforms. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.